But is it gonna?
I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we could stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Consumers has to.
Yeah.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. We will do a quick roll call, please. Ms. Arp,
Here.
Mr. Byer,
Present.
Ms. Ensley,
I'm here.
Mayor Hall,
Indicated that he's in West Virginia and will be back
I
sometime.
believe excused, Ms. Howland,
Here.
Ms. Powell,
Here.
Mr. Vriesinga,
Here.
and Mr. Wilks, I believe, is also excused, and Mr. Ringler is present. Public comments, those citizens wishing to speak on agenda and non-agenda items will be allowed a maximum of 4 minutes to address their concerns. This is the only time during the DDA that you will be allowed to address the board. Please state your name and address for the record if you would like. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Also a great idea to put our phones on silent.
On.
I always forget, so I just leave them off.
Anyone else who wishes to speak? All right, any conflicts of interest and ex parte communication we should be aware of? Moving on to the approval of the agenda. I hope that everyone's had a chance to take a quick peek.
Yes.
And if I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is approved, and the consent agenda, which includes the minutes and the financial report that are contained within your packet. Hopefully you've had a chance to review those in great detail. As I was not present for the last meeting. Thank you, Mr. Vriesinga, for really ruddering the ship. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. Unfinished business, deck the downtown with lights.
So this is something that we did last year. I think we offered up to $50 for downtown businesses to purchase new Christmas lights, winter lights, and display them on their building, which we thought would, bring some additional cheer to the downtown. I think we only had 2 or 3 businesses take advantage of that. The board did previously indicate that they thought they might like to do that again this year. But I need some discussion from you guys regarding what you thought might be an appropriate dollar amount to draw businesses into participating. And of course, there's a financial impact based on that, how many businesses we might allow to do that. So I guess that's the discussion I'm looking for, is how much money do you think is appropriate to offer, and do we need to limit it, or do we just say anybody who wants to do it, regardless of the number of businesses, will pay for it?
Do we have our budget number for that we allocated, or is it just under? Just simply under. Larger item.
Yeah, I don't know if we specifically budgeted for this item.
And are we gonna offer it to every business every year? Or like the ones that took advantage of it last year won't be able to participate this year? Or,
That's a call for you guys. I mean, last year was $50. This could potentially be $250. I hate to say, well, if you got $50 now, you can't get $250. Although I'd be okay if we're gonna be a consistent amount year to year, saying you got some last year, not this year.
To me, something like that is simple. It doesn't take a lot of time. I'd say, if we agree, put up $500. The most you can get is $75. And the first, when it's.
Once it runs out.
Once it's gone, it's gone. It works, it works, it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah, because most people are just gonna go get it on their own.
$50, you're not gonna get much out of it.
You can buy,
Anymore.
lights are cheap.
Yeah, well.
And some people already have some.
Right.
right,
lot of
and that
people
was
do
why.
not.
I'm just
Right.
replacing.
Maybe 20, but I say you put up $500, when it's gone, it's gone. If you want to take, they want to take part in it, they can take part in it. That'd be my suggestion and or motion.
Well, the nice thing about that is there's a little urgency there to kind of get businesses to maybe hop on it. So.
Which is similar to what we did last year. I think we limited $50 per business in like the first 10 businesses.
Mm,
But and this is maybe just my general feeling, I don't think $50 was sufficient to get the businesses interested.
I would do 100 and do,
Yeah.
and do a max of 500.
Because how many
Mostly
businesses
because
took
I
advantage
follow.
last year? Do we have
Two, maybe three.
two?
I
Yeah,
think
so
they're
do
all on this
100
board.
and then with a $500 cap.
So the first 5 businesses that.
Sure.
And if nobody does it and somebody spends 500, can we give them the 500? Yeah. Laura's like, I will buy a lot of lights because I love
I
Christmas.
guess that's a question for the board.
I was just being smart. Y'all know I will light my whole building up.
I think the holiday season to make it nice is important for downtown, to have a downtown be festive and look nice and welcoming. I mean, I think that's in everyone's interest to have foot traffic up and down.
Well, part of it is, I think it's the same as Laura's always done it. I've always done it. So I mean, nobody's ever had to give me an incentive to decorate for the holidays. That's just been part of what I did every year. That's why I didn't even take advantage of it last year, because it's like, I got plenty right now. So I'm hoping that this year I can update some, but.
So Mike, when Jerry Hall retires, will he still be doing the Christmas tree lights outside, or should we start looking at? Because they are so beautiful. I'd like to see them continue,
Yep, so I mean, that's multifaceted. First, there's the purchase of the lights themselves.
right?
Installation of the lights.
Right, that Jerry always did that, so that's what I'm
So-
thinking about.
I asked the mayor if he would let me help him this past year, and he said, sure. Then he did them on like a Thursday, and then on Friday said, oh, by the way, I did them already. So, I mean, you know the guy. That's how it
Yeah, yeah.
works. So, the DPW is capable of doing them. And of course, we could also hire some third-party contractor. Or we could have more volunteers do it.
So we should probably talk to Jerry and see if he still wants to do it, or,
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned it to him in the past, and he says he would like to continue doing it, so.
Cool.
his health holds out.
I know the chamber has a ton of lights that we purchased still. And we talked about this too, that if Jerry didn't want to do it, the chamber would step in and help a little bit.
Okay. Also,
Last year's was the first 20 businesses to submit a receipt for $50. That was the limit on it last year.
so does somebody want to make a motion with a dollar amount for each business and the dollar amount total?
I would say $100 per business with a cap of 500. That's what I motion.
5 businesses.
5 businesses.
And we're gonna limit that to Main Street and or
Only.
First Street and
It would have to be in the DDA district.
85. That's what I think.
So I think what we're kind of moving at then is that we might do this every year, so eventually it would kind of roll through everybody. Because 5 is not very many, obviously, when we offered it to 20 previously,
But
even
only
though they
2
didn't.
took
Okay.
it
Yeah,
last
I get that, but
if you go up to 100, then maybe somebody will only spend 50, and that would be more money in the future for someone
And
else.
some people won't even.
Yeah, so last year was $1,000. Do we want to offer that as a maximum? So now you have 10 businesses instead of 5.
Fine.
Yes,
That would
Good,
be
yeah, because
amazing.
only a
Yeah.
couple will probably.
Right.
Yeah, I think having the $100 amount would be more encouraging than the $50 amount too.
So Ms. Ensley, is it your motion then that $100 per business up to $1,000 total?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Half the board.
There it is.
All right, we got.
Next.
Sorry, Mr. Ringler, I'm taking your job probably.
as this is financial, we'll do a quick roll call. Ms. Arp,
yes.
Mr. Byer,
Yes.
Ms. Ensley,
Yes.
Ms. Howland,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Yes,
Mr. Friesinger,
Yes.
and Mr. Ringler also votes yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Then we move to B, which is a next mural idea.
Also in there, I added the wayfinding signage, I believe, from the last sign committee. Didn't know if any members of the sign committee wanted to speak to whether there's outstanding signage that needs to be completed or not. But yes, next meeting.
I would say on the sign portion, there were a couple of signs that were identified by the committee previously that I don't think have been addressed, whether the will of the council, the board here has changed. But as I look through the previous list, I'm not sure about the Regal Park sign, but the police sign has not been updated. The business district, there is no business district signs. The senior center,
there is, but you can't see it.
Well, they haven't been updated regardless. I mean, the idea was to make these all consistent so that they look the same, and we had an identity here for our beautiful downtown Cedar Springs. So, but there's a handful of these that were on our previous list that have not been done.
So there are a couple that I've looked at as well that we have not done, and there's probably reasons for it. In particular, the number 8, the police. As you guys are probably aware, the Kent County Sheriff's Department operates as the city's police department, and they are likely to move into their new building by next year or the year after. So it just feels a little silly updating the sign only for them to move to a different location.
Here. Mhm.
And I see the senior center. I'm not aware of any signage in the city that points to the senior center. Maybe I missed it, but
There is a sign.
At Elm,
Yeah, it's at Elm.
yeah.
so the problem with that one is that I'm not aware of any governmental support to that senior center. I think it's privately run and operated.
It's Kent County, I think. It's where that tax money goes up for senior taxes.
I'm not aware of any tax money that goes to that.
Well, I guess as far as I know, it's part of the Kent County senior, but
Well, maybe I could speak with them and find out if they do get county funding, but if not, we're kind of promoting a private.
I would suggest in that case, if there is no governmental, then we might want to remove that sign. Again, for consistency.
And business district, I know we have one at the staging area that points towards, I think it says the central business district. Was there other signage that we were interested in?
I'd like to have a discussion about that business district sign. You can only see it as you come out of the parking lot at Maby's. Can't see it when you're in the staging area or even any place in town. It's kind of on the edge of the White Pine Trail. I guess if you could see it if you weren't going too fast, but it would be nice to have that on both sides of that post.
I think the point was to point towards the people on the trail.
Right, but we have other people now, many other people. And I don't know why. What would it cost us to put another sign on each side?
Probably not a lot, but I think the idea was that if you're headed towards that sign, headed west, then you were coming from the business district. That you'd probably be aware of it already. But, you know, for 50 or $100, that's what you want to see.
Well, not to reopen an existing discussion. If we want to have the sign committee go back to work, then we probably should. But we have existing proposals from the sign committee that was adopted by this board. And I think that's what we should be focusing on without getting ourselves derailed. We had one located on Muskegon. That was a business district that I don't believe has been present or is present. There was one coming off the White Pine Trail, which Ms. Powell's referring to. And then I believe the other one that was not updated was the Morley Park and Museum sign from our previous list.
So are these signs in town somewhere and they just haven't been put up, or have they not been ordered?
I don't think they've been ordered. And in addition to that, I've had some signage that I asked for 12 weeks ago that we have not received yet. I think there's a delay in just the creation and shipping of signage.
Delay and everything.
The Heart of Cedar Springs sign. As I sit in the concerts or the band looking out, you can only see that sign from one direction,
You
from
mean
the street.
in the mural or?
No, the Heart of Cedar Springs sign. It would be nice for folks that are, again, walking through the concert area, up in the stage area, to be able to see the Heart of Cedar Springs sign. I don't think that would be a huge investment.
Mr. Ringland, do you think it's appropriate for the subcommittee to form and provide a written statement of what?
That's kind of what I'm getting at here. If we're going to get off rails, I mean, we have our previous work that was done and adopted. So if we do want to reopen that sign committee, then I would say we refer this back to the committee and bring it back to the board for consideration.
Well, I took the pictures last time. I'd be glad to do it again.
That's fine. If you have the pictures, we can just resubmit them again, but we should
Okay.
have the committee go back and make their recommendations and then for the board to consider.
So you and I, and who else was on
I
that
believe
committee?
Laura.
Laura.
So it'd be a good idea to make sure we have ordered what we already wanted to order. throw those in.
Correct. We can,
It's just a
well, again, like
contingency.
for the senior center, for example, and the police, if those are no longer appropriate, we can remove those.
Swap
and then-
them for the extra one.
Correct. Or if there's any others that we identify. So is that okay with you, Laura?
I'm fine with that.
Let's just table this item then and refer it back to the committee and we'll move on. We'd move on then to new business and food trucks.
I was hoping we'd have a discussion a little bit on what the next mural might be, if we're gonna do that.
Do we have a location for that mural?
I don't currently have a location proposed.
The Galt's bought the building next to me, the one that's been for sale forever. They're currently tuck pointing and stuff. They're gonna basically stucco the whole side with concrete, trowel it all out. They've expressed interest in putting a mural up there.
The only issue that would be there is that I know that that entire driveway area is part of your property. It's not publicly accessible.
I told them that I'd let, oh, you want it for people to be
So
able to.
I'm just a
come.
little concerned that we're gonna have people who are gonna wanna go take pictures and park their cars there and
I'm
whatever
a little
else.
concerned that if the tuck pointing isn't done properly, it's a potential avalanche that could.
That's another issue.
So
One idea I have toyed with in
That's
the
bad.
He's
past,
not doing a great job.
Oh, I know, I've seen.
one idea that I've toyed with in the past is the asphalt pathway that kind of goes around the library. Murals don't have to be on a horizontal surface. They could be on a flat surface. We just have to make sure that whatever the paint is would be sufficiently, tough, and maybe put an acrylic or something on top of it. But the question then becomes, if you're not gonna have a hoist and a lift, you really need to pay somebody $8,000 to $10,000 to paint on the ground. So that might be a good project for high school students. Get away from the fine art detail, make it geometric, just have it brightly colored.
I was in Savannah at this big thing. They've got a big art college there, and they had this weekend where all the parents kind of came in at the end of the year, and all of the students painted murals all over all of the sidewalks all through town. It was really cool. Maybe we can get, Kendall or something to come in and do that.
I have found it very, very, very difficult to get anybody from Kendall or even the high schools interested in doing this type of stuff.
I have a hard time getting people to bring me employee candidates as well.
Are there other locations that we've considered? One of my concerns with the sidewalk right now is that until that pole barn is moved from the heart of Cedar Springs, I think we're running into this whole public access and visibility thing. So
Yeah, I'm working on that issue too.
is there other locations that we might consider or that anyone else would have in mind for?
What about the side of Perry's building?
That's Len Allington's building.
Well, yeah, Perry's
I
there.
don't think we should put any more public murals on private property personally.
Well, so with Miss Ensley's building, she did provide a certain amount of funding.
Right.
Part of that. So it's a private-public partnership. And of course, there's an agreement in place that she's not allowed to remove it for a number of years. Of course, unless you have a piece of art indoors protected from the elements, it's never going to be permanent.
Well, I think about the cold storage room. There's quite a bit of room on that. That could be stand to be dolled up. a little
That
bit.
is possible. The front of this building.
I was just thinking about this. Yeah.
Yeah, we've talked about repainting the entire building. The issue there is that you got some windows and a door in the way. Whether they'd want to incorporate that into their design or not.
Good artists can.
Yeah, but we're open to that possibility. And anyone else on the board think anywhere else?
You just brought up the one that I was thinking of, was this building here, spreading it around in town a little bit.
Oh, yeah. this building.
But I think Len's building is also nice if he was interested, because it does have, it is a nice north-facing surface that is readily visible for people driving into town.
Mhm.
The side of the theater as well.
Oh, yeah, theater would be a good one.
Yeah, it would be.
Oh, the theater would be awesome.
Mhm.
Does anyone have good contacts then with, I guess, Len Allington and or the theater that we
I think that would be one and the
That would-
same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
on the
we'd
same-
have to
They're
ask
the same
them.
board.
and Harry.
That's what I figured.
That is a nonprofit, so that would be.
Mhm.
Well, so we could approach them and at least see if they're interested. I'm sure the city would be interested in allowing the front of this building too. Anything regarding conceptualization, what it would be, or we look for free form art?
think that's kind of what we did last time, was try to incorporate some elements of city or city history, but let them go.
Any particular aspect of city history? I think one time we had a lumberjack, something or other.
The guy that drew the fire truck, that, I mean, if he wasn't so freaky, that would have been amazing.
Which truck?
It would be cool to have a
Kirk.
big train, like the
Yeah.
fishing line theme the sign that we put down on the amphitheater, something that ties to that, because this was part of that history.
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
that'd be cool.
And it would be neat to see a big three-dimensional train coming at you in perspective with maybe a similar sign painted on it, or I could water jet or laser cut another sign that goes next to it.
I also think that anytime you incorporate people, because I see a lot of butterfly wings and people can stand in front
Yeah,
of
yeah.
people, things that incorporate, ask people to get out of their car, I think is a good draw.
Sally, thank you for bringing that up because I didn't want to.
Butterfly wing.
What, the
Well,
butterfly
I
wings?
mean,
Yeah.
I've seen everything. I've seen balloons and they have a hand and there's a bundle and it looks like you're hanging
Yeah,
on to
that's
it. I've seen kites. I've seen all kinds of, because I know a couple artists. that
And
do
those are
things.
smaller things that could be placed in places
Yeah.
like your alleyway.
Even like a conductor hanging out of said train, where
Correct.
someone could come up and get a picture next to the conductor. You
Yep.
could incorporate something like that.
Yep.
too. To just about anything.
I think in general, it's a good idea if we have objects like
When I
that
was in
that are
Kentucky, every
photographable
street
over
that I went
people.
on
Yeah.
had some kind of incorporated thing that you could stand and have your picture taken, which I thought was cool.
That-
Projecting images of people can end up being controversial.
Right.
That's the problem.
Why?
Whatever we choose is
Bernie.
gonna.
Read the
depend
newspaper,
on
Bernie.
People will
what-
find a reason to make it count. So you just want to avoid it.
Mr. Wrangler, just before Ms. Ensley speaks, do you specifically mean depicting a person on the wall? Or do you mean what Ms. Howland's talking about, which is having butterfly wings?
No, I think that's great.
No, butterfly
That's things
wings.
that people go and stand next to and take pictures of. That's good if they're objects.
So you're worried about the skin hue being the wrong color? Yeah, okay.
Maybe big lions and stuff.
Well, and whatever we choose, that's gonna dictate who the artist is. Because every artist is so specific. I mean, when I was looking for a mural artist, literally I got
Right.
a ton of applications and it's like half of them didn't show. for the
Yeah.
paintings and-
It's kind of like my job interviews. I was supposed to have 5
Me
today.
too,
One
yeah.
showed.
Mr. Ringley,
Oh,
your
oh.
mural artist was excellent, by the way.
Yeah.
I got
He's a
to-
great guy, yeah. And
Yeah, he
quite
was
honestly, I was
great.
just gonna say, I mean, there is a ton of it down by the location we're working on in Grand Rapids. And I'm happy to start snapping pictures of a lot of these if you guys want to look at some of these.
Yes.
Because there is a number of active artists that are showing up. I know when I talked to 3 different ones for the last one, they all responded, so that was really good.
Would the board be interested in seeing kind of a collection of different types of murals?
They're online,
Well, I know, but
but-
hundreds.
Mhm.
somebody would have to curate them and put them into
A presentation, yeah.
Well,
So,
I think if Dave goes down and sees 4 or 5 murals and says, hey, this is the artist, he's here, he's working on it. Can
Mhm.
you send me your website and we can look at that? Right? I mean, that's probably. the
it's just,
easiest way.
they're active local artists, so I mean, I'm just happy to snap a few of those, and most of them do have websites, and so we can do that. I think it's good to bring it up, so thank you for adding that on the agenda. Any other discussion on the mural then for now?
And I'll gladly submit all the pictures that I took when I was in Kentucky,
Awesome.
in Louisville, because it was everywhere between metal art and that you could interact with as well as mural art.
They have really good
was
graffiti art too. It's
fun.
amazing.
I mean, it was really seriously fun.
I think there's 2 points there. Is that what are the concepts that we like? And then
Mhm.
B, for taking the local ones, who are local artists that are actually doing these things? So it's 2 different
Yep.
purposes, so. Anyway, all right, let's move on then to new business, the Cedar Springs food truck rally.
So this question was brought to me by a board member who wanted to discuss whether we're utilizing food trucks or should we utilize food trucks in connection with either events or on a more regular day-to-day basis for the overall promotion of Cedar Springs. So food truck rally, obviously, I think Kentwood's doing a big food truck rally here shortly. You bring, a dozen or more trucks. I see this in the Riverside Park every Friday throughout the summer. You provide a location and you try to get a crowd to come in and go to these food trucks. So there's a couple of groups there of all the various food trucks in the area. Another idea is bringing in food trucks during the summer concert series, which was fairly successful. I think this year we had between 100 and 200 people at each of the events, I think. My concern there would be we don't want to promote people going to the food truck instead of local restaurants. So what we'd probably want to look for there is, a service that's not being offered by the restaurants, ice cream trucks or something to that effect. 'Cause I don't think the brewery sells a lot of ice cream.
And sometimes food trucks bring people out, but then they get there and say, I'd rather go over here and have a beer.
Exactly.
So I think the food truck can be kind of a draw to
Mhm.
boost everything, because when you get an extra 1,000 people in town, half of those people will say, hey, I want to go over here, I want to go get a cocktail.
And then finally, 17 North Main. So I don't remember what building used to be there, the old white building.
Yeah, it used to be Mercantile yesterday was there for a lot of
So
years.
that building got knocked over as part of the new storm drain that went through. And I suspect at some point the city might be donated that property. Now, I'm working with the assessor to determine what our taxable problems would be for the city. But you can't put a building there. So it leaves only so many options. So if anybody's been to the business called Outside Coffee, which is on Wealthy Street in Easttown, basically a permanent food truck location with what I'd call a garden picnicking area around it. I just want to put that in your minds of the possibility of what that property could be used for. And since it incorporates a food truck, I figured today was an appropriate time to discuss it. So
Saugatuck has a corner like that they turned into like a rose garden, a little walkway through, and they display some different local like metal art, and it's pretty interesting. It's just a nice little spot where you can sit and have your coffee, and we went over to Busy Mom's Bakery and got a cinnamon and bun and a coffee. You could go sit there and
Traverse City has a nice one too. I think a couple of concerns with food trucks, obviously, the local restaurants certainly have some concerns, and particularly with a lot of us have been, I think, very focused on making sure that we're supporting local without worrying about bringing in transient. The other thing with food trucks is that if there's something that's it's either got to be a big event or it's got to be consistent, or a lot of them won't show up. I know the owner of the food truck that's down on Northland Drive, and he has real difficulty even attracting other food trucks because it's just not busy enough for them. So it's not a destination yet. I think the idea perhaps at 17 North Main would be a better one, particularly if there was a rent or a fee or something charged to them, so that they're contributing to the community the same way that bricks and mortars are, and hopefully even hiring local people as well.
So I spent some time in Sparta at their food. They have two
Little
food trucks, and
containers.
then they have those little shipping containers. And
I
it
read
was packed.
brings a lot of people in.
Yeah.
They've got a destination with a big parking
Right.
area.
But I think that's the key, is having a more or semi-permanent place and consistency. So
Well, that's what I would propose, right? So they have to rent, they have to agree to all of the summer months, right? So a minimum of 6 months. If they charge over there, I sat down and talked to the lady that runs it. It's $250 a month for each storage unit, each pod or whatever they are. And if you bring in a food truck, you're required to be there for the full summer as well, and you have to pay the same amount. So it's really, I think it would be awesome for foot traffic in our town, to get people out, and those little storage pods had some, I mean, it was cute. I spent
Well,
$400.
I know we've brought up the incubator idea before too, and that there's some merit to that. I know Muskegon also has done
Yeah.
the same thing with
Muskegon.
incubator. You can spend a year or two in those before moving on. So it's a great way for mom and pops to.
And
To start
really,
out,
the Roundup could become another property like that. I don't know why it's
the
still
Roundup
sitting there.
sold.
Really? Someone actually bought it?
I sold it.
Lord.
Holy cow. They
There's-
didn't notice all the fire damage?
They're
inside?
scraping it.
They'll fix
They're
it up.
Building a new
What-
three
what
story
needed to be
building.
done?
Part of the ordinance that we created as council a while back, we were going through food truck issues, is that we did want to protect our locally owned brick and mortar business restaurants. So a food truck cannot be located within 200 foot of a existing restaurant without the permission of the owners. The other one was what?
1,000 feet from any festival or organized event, unless you were part of that festival.
Okay.
or organized event.
Right, so that's what we did to protect our brick and mortar, so that's what we have to go by at this point.
Yeah.
I want to, and I also want to be clarified, I'm not talking about protecting. I have no fear of competition as it is. I mean, Jody and I have known each other for
Mhm.
20 years, and I basically begged her to come here. Because
The more
the
you
more
have,
the-
the more the
Yeah.
destination.
My point is, we pay taxes here, we employ people here. So if we have somebody, I like the permanence of, and having those folks also contributing to the same community and building our community stronger, not just coming and taking from it and going away.
That's what I-
That's
yeah,
my concern.
Sure. No, I get it. But if I could just follow up on one minor issue. So I'm talking about the 17 North Main property as a semi-permanent food truck location, but it's a very small property. It's not big enough for the type of Sparta installation that they have. And while I will fight you guys to the death regarding the amount of parking we have in downtown, I can't think of any good parking locations that I would want to set up that type of thing. Where that would be more valuable than the parking itself. So,
I would disagree with that. Here's why, because the one that I went to in Petoskey had 0 parking and the place was
Oh, yeah,
packed.
that one is huge.
well, and so my question then is, where would an appropriate place be for this type of development? Especially since you're selling everything out from underneath.
And that-
What we want.
Well,
Well-
I personally think the pod containers over there, I mean, you can probably get 3 there pretty damn easy.
What do you mean 3 over there?
Three of those shipping containers over there on that lot, pretty easy.
On 17 North Main?
Yeah, I think you
If
could.
not 4, if you walk
Just
down.
do a
the
Yeah.
street.
U-shape.
Yeah, just do a U shape. So you could make one a food truck, which is what they have over there, right? And the rest of, well, I think there's 2 over there. There's 2 food trucks over there. And then the others are the pod containers. I mean, those pod containers are literally, they're so inexpensive. I mean, yes, there's gonna be some expense, but.
Yeah, because
I
you have
also
to
think-
buy them and
right.
get them ready to
And
be
you have to put mini
utilized.
splits in
Yeah.
them, yeah.
There's
Well, are you
also,
talking across the street or across from the Redbird?
Over there.
Across.
That's in Redbird.
17, the
Where
building that was
Mercantile
tore down.
yesterday was.
Next to the Chase
Yeah.
parking lot.
Yes.
well, there's also a city lot 1 block south of that too, that's, I would say is largely
Well, There's a
underutilized.
lot of street parking. People can find
What city lot?
I've never-
One block south behind. I'm brain farting on the cross street, up from where Main Street was, or the Triple B. There's another city lot that's 1 block, it's a half block off. It's a parking lot. That's there.
Yeah, back here.
Let me look at the,
Behind the B&B Beauty Supply?
hold on a minute.
I just think, in my opinion, we need more people on the street walking around.
We have to
Mhm.
walk.
Well, so while you guys are thinking about it, though, the reason I even bring this concept to you, especially the 17
Ash.
North Main, is, that would be,
In Ashland second. Sorry.
that would be a decently expensive thing to convert it into a food truck / shipping container type location for a municipality. We're not in it to make it a profit. So you're probably looking at $50,000 minimum
I'm
development costs. And the board would be very helpful in helping finance part of that. I'm sorry, second in Ash? Yes.
Yes.
So that's a parking lot. It does border a couple of single family residential uses, which is not ideal. And I certainly wouldn't want to set that up as a permanent location. Now, there was some discussion at the city council about the 43 South Main property, which would be kitty corner from City Hall here. And potentially changing that to a pickleball court area. Obviously, if you've got people congregating there for pickleball, having a food truck nearby would be the worst thing in the world.
How far
Mine-
are residential houses? Because pickleball is very loud.
So
thought
there is one.
Tennis courts were converting to pickleball.
Yeah.
I've already seen them up there.
So the pickleball, so the tennis courts at Hilltop, unfortunately are on school property. And the city council is not willing to invest money on school property at this time. Now, there has been other discussions about pickleball courts in the parking lot south of Skinner Fields parking lot. Currently, there's a couple old shuffleboard courts, it looks like. We could potentially put pickleball courts there. But it was at least floated, the idea of this grass lot across from City Hall.
If it's for sale,
It is not a Cronkite property. It is owned by
Concrete on that side. and
Christmas tree.
Carla
Yeah.
Swider.
Yeah.
But the Christmas tree is now going in the heart of Cedar Springs Park.
Right, right.
Anyways, all sorts of stuff going on.
Pickleball does have pushback once it starts, because if you ever go Saturday morning to Grand Haven YMCA, before you're a quarter mile to that court, you can hear it.
I know.
The closer you get, the louder it gets.
One of the reasons we were opposed to the Hilltop location, because there's a single family home there too.
Plus, it's not our property. They want to use city money, but it's not city property. So I think private people are
Yeah.
gonna develop it to their.
They just have
use.
like temporary nets up and whatever. I've seen them.
Yeah, there's two courts up there. They're temporary basis right now.
One other quick point before we move off of food, I read a meeting that I didn't attend, some comments on the, during the bike race on the food there too. And just a couple of qualifying quick on that. Obviously, we were hoping that was going to have more participation, but virtually every restaurant in town had no people. So that was one of the big factors in that. I think the two that did show up there did do fairly well. So I wanted to add that commentary to on this topic of outside food. So if there may be others, there may still be the point in the future that there's some local brick and mortars that would want to get involved if we had a lot at 17 or another location on Main Street as well.
And can't, restaurant, if you wanted to service a crowd outside, you can put a food service outside on the sidewalk.
It depends what you're doing, but, and well, where the licensing falls in, but yes, in our case, we were able to run under a catering, so there was no additional licensing required. Anything else on the food trucks then, or are we just, this is discussion for now and we're,
Discussion for now, but it sounds like we're not generally opposed to the ideas. We just have to have more of a solidified idea of what we want to do.
And we can always amend an ordinance, but the only thing that's specified in it is that the surrounding restaurants would say, okay, it's okay with us. So that's where we're at.
Maybe considered a brick and mortar if we made them be there for 6 months.
So brick and mortar, probably not. But what I think the ordinance says is you can't operate a food truck within 200 feet of a restaurant unless you have that restaurant's permission. And I'm assuming that across the street from the Redbird is gonna be 200 feet to that lot.
And Jose's.
But the city council,
Yeah.
you know, they can change things.
want to provide the opportunity.
My only concern is just having people
Locals
come in and out very quickly and not supporting this community. They're just there to make a fast buck. Like Dave said, I want somebody that's gonna be interested and be there for a while,
Right.
and actually be part of this community.
I don't think it would be outside the realm of possibilities for me to say to the city council, hey, if we're gonna do this, let the DDA run it. And then the DDA would have a say in what the rules and requirements would be. You have to be here for 6 months. You have to pay X number of dollars, you know. Now, if the city is gonna be hit with a tax consequence for using it for profit instead of a public use, now we're gonna have to pay a tax bill. And we're gonna definitely have to have a rental fee to pay for that tax bill. So again, the city is generally not in these things to make a profit, which is good for a lot of reasons. But I agree with you. I don't want fly by night. I don't want, you know, here today, gone tomorrow. And Mr. Ringler, that food truck down on Northland, if he's local, is there any reason we can't invite him up too.
Absolutely not. No, he
See
would.
how
I'm sure
things
be-
work.
He's a good guy and he is local. I know him well too.
I
Well,
tried-
sometimes he's had trouble keeping anybody else. He's invited numerous. There's been numerous there for 1 or 2 times, but they don't stay for exactly the reasons I mentioned.
Oh, I know about that place. I went down there and got a taco or boy, whatever they call those things. And $150 later, next door, I bought a dog collar. I haven't used
See,
yet.
that's good.
I know it's good.
That's
What was in your
good.
coffee mug, Bernie?
Yeah, what were you drinking that day?
Unfortunately, I tried to get a burrito before a concert at 6:45 and he had already shut down.
Mm.
And he said the shutdown time listed was 7 o'clock, so I was a little disappointed. Anyways,
All right, so if that were, we opened the discussion on that, let's move on to the downtown redevelopment, the brownfield redevelopment.
yep, so brownfield redevelopment is one of the few tax things we can offer for a new business coming into the community. We've had several of the businesses in this room who've taken advantage of that, which is fine by us. The question, though, I guess, is, does this board have an opinion about how much more we should be pushing that? So despite Ms. Ensley's efforts, we do have some properties in town that are having a difficult time getting developed. And I wonder if we need to be more cognizant and outgoing in advertising that, hey, the city has this, you can, you can come in and redevelop this property and you could get $100,000 in tax, revenue from the city. Is that something we really want to push? Or do we think that the economy is good enough and the interest is good enough that we don't really need to do that?
Don't you think that anybody, and I'm David, you're attacking both, anybody that's starting a business today is gonna research that anyway,
Right.
for locations,
will.
and they're gonna find that out.
Yeah,
You'll get the right place involved.
We
and
don't- I
work
mean,
with you and for
I'd
you.
love to think that.
we would, but I'll tell you, there's a
That's not
lot
been
that
my
don't.
I
They
was
just
just gonna say,
start
Jeremy,
doing
Imagine they
stuff, and
wouldn't.
Laura, you can bet, they just aren't aware. I mean, a lot of this stuff is awareness stuff. Todd's gonna do his homework, I'm gonna do his homework, Laura's gonna do her homework. I know of many businesses who have come here and went, oh, they don't know.
Really?
I know under a previous city manager, we had discussions at one point about trying to create a welcome to town packet that had some leads and resources for these types of things. Laura, I think we had some talk about doing that unfortunately really never went anywhere, but there wasn't a lot of effort put into it, and that's fine. But to have something that the Chamber of Commerce can share, that the DDA can share, the city can share, where it doesn't have to be exhaustive, but it's like, here are some things that are available, and just letting, because you're right, Bernie, a lot of them are, and some of them should, but not everybody is. So just to have that, it lets anybody who has interest know there are resources here, and that this could certainly be included as part of that.
I can tell you just from showing a lot of these buildings, and I've been in all of them that are currently for sale. They are bad. The one next to Todd's is bad. I mean, really bad. I had an offer on it and we backed out due to the amount of money it was gonna cost to bring it up to code. And I mean, a lot of these people have no idea. I tell them and they look at me like deer in the headlights, right?
There is
And
almost.
quite honestly, the Roundup's a good example of that. The previous owners of that bought that and had no idea what they were getting into, and that's why it sat there for whatever, 2-3
And they're
years. So,
losing their shirt.
I
yep.
looked at it and it was cost prohibitive.
Mhm.
You're gonna drop $1 million just to get something basic there in today's environment.
And they do finance demolition too, so that's kind of cool.
Mhm, mhm.
Because there's some demolition needs to be done.
Oh, the whole thing's coming
That's an
down.
expensive one because the
It is.
alleys and the permits to block everything off, and you've got to get in there with a claw and carefully remove it without destroying the buildings on the 2 sides. There's insurances involved. It was a hefty bill.
Of course, this is not as simple as the city just hands you money to do this stuff.
No, you have
But,
to apply for it.
I think there are people out there, I know there are people out there who don't know what they're getting into, and they don't know what DDA brownfields are. Or I'm sorry, just brownfield development sites are. And I just wonder how much this board thinks it's appropriate for us to use that as an advertising tool. How many properties do we have in town that we want to see developed are in bad
lot.
shape? We're getting to the end of the life of the previous business and they're gonna be gone.
There's a bar right across the street that needs to be scraped. It's so crooked. You go inside, everything's, I put the level app on my phone and everything's like 7
Mhm.
degrees out of Kent everywhere you walk.
I think all this commentary though is going back to Bernie's comment. People should know, but they
People
don't.
don't
And I
know.
think
How can the chamber
To
help
answer
in
your
this?
question-
Advertise that.
People don't know.
How can the
The
chamber help in
realtor
this?
should- The
This is-
realtor who sells the
right.
building should
Should.
inform them.
Well,
This should be a chamber project,
Should.
shouldn't it?
I
Well,
guess I'm
so to
confused
answer
how
your
that's
question,
a
Bernie, though, is
project.
we probably put together a
It's business.
one-page thing, just saying, here is what this is. Here's how you go about doing it. Here's what kind of money you can get for it. And just put it out from the city, saying, look, we want to redevelop.
Right, but where do you put it? How do you know what this guy in from where Grand Rapids is looking for a building to start selling bikes or something?
We got a couple of real estate agents who I'm sure would love to have that information on hand. We've got a couple of building owners who want to sell and get out.
Is it something that the people that have their buildings for sale can post a little flyer in their building
Yeah.
when people
Mhm.
come look?
That
through it?
part would be
They've
fine.
got
Just
real
say,
estate
"No,
agents.
This
mean,
is
There should be
available."
a flyer that is
Yeah.
listed on the MLS for everybody that looks at them. I mean, prime example is the accounting building legitimately is caving in.
Which one?
The accounting building,
Oh.
McBride Accounting, literally is caving in.
Which is your opinion.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, it's bad.
Well, I think the point is though, just as I said a minute ago, there was a movement at one time to create a little packet, whether it's posted on the city website and when an outreach is made to realtors, business owners, et cetera, the chamber, so that the information is readily accessible and at least easy to find the basics and some direction. I think would be very, very helpful in my
It
opinion.
would be so helpful because a lot of these people, like when I walk them through, I'm like, listen, there's some money that you can get for this kind of stuff. And they just look at me like, what?
Don't they have lawyers and bankers? and stuff
Not
that-
everybody.
Yeah,
Not everybody does.
Doesn't anybody do their due
Not
diligence?
everybody,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that would be
Yeah.
helpful
I'm
for,
just-
I mean,
guess
a lot
I'm
of-
out of the loop.
a
I
lot
would
of
never
lawyers and
even
bankers
consider
cost a lot of
buying
money.
it.
Right.
Well, but and you're right, Bernie, that should be
Yeah,
the
it serves
case,
them
but
right.
people don't.
They don't
They don't.
deserve it then. If they had
They don't.
A lot
They
of
don't know
these
what they're getting
building, even the building owners don't have a clue, right? They really do not know, and it would be so helpful. I mean,
Bernie, I'm an attorney. I didn't know these things existed. I
We
didn't.
have 2 pages right here that anybody can download and print. A realtor, the chamber, whoever owns a building.
Yeah.
That's a good start right there. And I also do believe we can get speakers to come in from the Michigan Economic
Development Council.
Development Council can come in and speak to chambers, realtors, DDA, whatever.
Not to rain on your parade, but I found the MEDC to be fairly uncooperative,
Well,
which is why I'm saying the city council and this board.
Well, the right place is supposed to do this for Grand Rapids, in my experience with them,
Mm-hmm.
is that's a lot of smiles and handshakes and they don't. do it.
They're
That's
empty.
that's an appropriate way.
But
to
if you
do
were
it.
buying a
They're empty
building,
promises.
you'd do
I
some
won't
due
even call
diligence.
them
No, you
As an
won't,
attorney or anybody else.
Yes.
but they
You're
don't.
not buying a building, so why would you know? But if you were buying a building, you'd know.
So Bernie,
Go
I
to
deal,
city
I deal with
website.
dozens and
I
dozens. of
understand, I
businesses
get
a year, and they don't do this.
like how many?
I think the answer is yes.
Okay, and so Mr. Ringler, just one final point, and then I'll work on it. The welcoming packet, the problem we found with that was by the time we put the information into the packet, the information changed.
Mhm.
So maybe we need to focus a little bit more on the information that doesn't change and make
Well,
it a little bit simpler.
I think nowadays the easy thing to do is
Website.
promote, here's the website, and you can update that as
Links.
necessary.
Mhm.
So
Links to the places that update.
just a flyer that says, welcome to town, go here, and it's done. And I think everybody can point to that, so.
Are these pages readily available on our website? Because I've talked to a lot of different contractors and developers, and that's where they go, to the city website. And then they go from there.
I think some of them are, not all of them.
Just these 2 pages are just so full of great information.
I will make sure that the brownfield ones in particular is up on the city's website.
Thank you.
And I'll start working on a more of a welcome to the city. We want your money. Come, get this money.
Yes.
Right, that's.
Okay, let's move on, guys. We're getting here on time. DDA and RFF Agritainment.
So as far as I'm aware, the DDA doesn't really have any involvement with the Red Flannel Festival. And so I guess my question to you is, are you interested in sponsoring any kind of thing, any kind of involvement whatsoever at the Red Flannel Festival? And then I just threw in an idea here, which is, kind of things I've worked on throughout the years, which I'll label as Agritainment. This is a farming community. It's kind of the history of the town. And this is some of the stuff I've seen in other communities and in my past. And so the question is, do we want to sponsor any kind of Agritainment, whether it's with Red Flannel Festival or the summer concert series even. We did a cakewalk this year. Kids absolutely loved it. Straw bale toss. I mean, you get those 50-pound straw bales and say, whoever tosses the furthest wins $50. It's the kind of thing that can get men to come downtown for these events. When traditionally we're talking about mostly families and mothers with children. Straw bale should be straw bale pyramid. Sorry, you build a pyramid out of straw bales. Kids love to climb all over those. Human hamster wheel. You get these big kind of black plastic drainage tiles, and you cut them into sections that are maybe 4 or 5 foot wide. You put them on a track and you let the kids run them up and down. And then hayride. We had a hayride, I think, put on by the FFH, I think, this year. Kids really enjoyed that. So I guess, does DDA have any interest in participating along with the Red Flannel Festival? And or would you like to see any more of this other stuff done at some alternative?
Are you asking about actually running an event, or are you asking about just sponsoring an event that is run?
A little bit of both. Because obviously sponsoring an event on our own would be more costly and time consuming.
Mhm.
Possibly throwing some of these elements at some other festival and saying, we will sponsor this portion of it is another thing. But is this something the board's interested in at all?
Is with the Red Flannel, it's their week, right? Basically.
Yeah,
Am I wrong? And then ask them if they would like this to participate?
it's probably too late for this year because everything's
Yeah.
scheduled, but I don't know why it wouldn't be a great thing in the summer, for at the concert series. And then you'd have better weather, better turnout, more kids. The Red Flannel Festival is so, it's overwhelming what we have.
So Ms. Powell, the reason I mentioned it in the same breath as the Red Flannel Festival is this is kind of stuff I think of as part of a fall harvest autumnal festival, which is kind of subsumed right now by Red Flannel. Straw bale tosses are not really a spring thing. At least in not my mind.
I agree.
For general downtown development, I mean, I think spreading out and ancillary activities throughout the year are more beneficial to development than tagging on. I think to your point, Red Flannel is, well, I think if we can support Red Flannel, obviously that's good, but that's so big and overwhelming
Yeah.
already. I'm not sure adding an extra something.
But they might want to
is
do it,
very,
something like that at
there's a lot of ROI in
concert.
that.
Maybe they do
Right.
another event in the concert, but thing is, if you create a Red Flannel event, it has to be covered by the Red Flannel insurance, and it's really has to be a Red Flannel event if it's on Red Flannel Day. That's just the way it goes,
Excuse me,
insurance wise.
What did we do last year? I donated a bunch of bales, then you end up buying some more.
That was
Straw bale.
for,
What was that?
Halloween.
Halloween.
Halloween, okay.
Which was great. I think people, at least I know for our experience, was that people really liked it. So
Right.
We did it. We made like a little bench out of
Yeah.
it so kids could sit next to our skeleton.
Mhm.
It was Halloween. Should
And
we
you'd
talk
always
about-
see moms taking pictures of their
Mhm.
kids next to our skeleton.
If that's something that, I don't know, city did it.
We got these for Halloween.
hooray.
Awesome.
On either side of the road to help kids cross over the street along with the deputies. that they
Perfect.
have.
Nice.
I love that.
These are available for anything you guys want. Don't want to put them in the roads. We'll probably put them on the sides of the roads, but
Absolutely.
they're reflective in the light too. So,
Nice.
Cool.
if I recall correctly, this board was not interested in Halloween decorating or anything this year. The straw bales or.
I don't know, it wasn't the board, somewhere I got the Banner Head Ford ended up donating 40, 50 bales of straw.
Yep.
And then when the smoke cleared, they wanted more, the city did. And so that you bought them.
Yeah, it ended up being a lot of extra work and cost than we anticipated. And frankly, I don't think the businesses were really all that appreciative or cared that much.
Fine. Okay, but my only point was, if you want them, you should contract the straw, because with the weather and stuff, there's just not a lot of hay and straw around this year.
Yeah.
It's only a personal- It's not.
So, all right, well, anyway, if, any more discussion, I guess, on this point, is there interest in pursuing this or?
No, but it sounds like the board is more willing to do that type of sponsorship in the summer concert series to bring more people downtown during that instead of Red Flannel. That's what I got.
I
Perfect.
personally think we should team up with City Impact. City Impact has done a lot at the summer concert series and maybe sponsor one of their events. Because they always take on the cost of, I mean, they give away free hot dogs, they do all sorts of stuff to the kiddos. Or maybe we sponsor Cordell's pumpkin giveaway. Because Cordell eats that and it costs him thousands every single.
I think he's sponsored by one of the utility companies.
Yeah, he only gets a certain percentage of it. Out of pocket, he's a couple grand.
Well, and same thing with the cakewalk that was sponsored by a council member, myself, and the bakery. So there's a lot of groups that are doing stuff, and I think that really enhanced the summer concert series.
Mhm.
And so I'm not opposed to the idea. I'm just saying, does DDA want to put their own flavor on it to, promote the brand and help bring people downtown?
Perhaps we could budget a donation to anybody who does go in and want to do a special event at the concert series. To help cover their cost, $100 or something like that, as long as they're nonprofit.
Well, let's keep in mind the DDA was part of sponsoring the series itself. I mean, so they were creating the environment,
Right.
Oh,
but
Mhm.
Chamber might want to put on an event, Red Flannel might want to put on an event.
I don't think you can say nonprofit because a lot of like Ryan from Farm Bureau, he went and did an event there. Or, I mean, to say specifically a nonprofit, a lot of businesses have teamed up and went there and done stuff.
which is good. That's a
Yeah.
strong community.
That
So
is a
that's what
strong
we're trying to
community.
foster. And like, as I said, to go back to my comment, if the DDA has created an event, we've done our job. We're developing downtown. We're creating those things. I mean, we've done that. So
Mhm.
Let's let other people take over from there.
Mhm.
Mhm.
any other discussion on that? Kind of move on. I'm watching the clock here. Correspondence.
So the revised year calendar, board members at this point are expected to be in the chamber for in-person discussions, but members of the public can attend via the information provided there. Ms. Johnson, I'm assuming the Zoom details were in there, right? Yeah. Now, that being said, a couple of board members did ask if they could participate virtually. And I think my response to that would be yes, if the board allows it and if you don't vote. So I guess, is there any discussion about allowing that? My only concern is we might have difficulty getting quorum if we allow it.
I say no.
My only concern with a policy is, given what we've gone through in the last year and a half, 2 years, is, excuse my French, but nobody friggin' knows. I mean, nobody knows. We could be in lockdown again in 2 weeks. Nobody knows. I mean, we're very conscious of it, given what we are. I know Jody is too. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I guess we'll find out when it comes, but just had some questions. People wanted to do that. So.
I mean, if we want to entertain some kind of policy like that, I think we would have to do a little research and say if under these conditions, et cetera, which is
If the planet's burning or whatever.
right.
Break your leg, you can't actually physically get.
I'm
there
talking
type
more
of
about
thing.
COVID. If the numbers hit a certain level, okay. But I know there's legal concerns as well as to what we can and can't do. So
So,
Like you say, you don't know, so wait and see. If it comes to that point, then we could make some phone calls, have an emergency meeting, get it done. I don't know.
So just so everyone's clear, under the state law that we're currently operating under, for health reasons, you can attend virtually and participate and vote.
mhm.
However, I don't get to define what a health reason is. So I will leave it at that. But other than that, if you're just for funsies and want to be doing something else right now and do it in your car, that's not.
I think that's fine, appropriate. And if there's an issue, we can obviously address it with a policy, I think.
Favorite meeting was from Grand Haven State Park while I was eating Butch's Beach burritos.
All right, DDA Director's report.
Nothing, good discussion. Appreciate it.
We'll move on quickly to trustee comments then. We can start with Mr. Byer. at the
I have
end.
none.
Best comment of the year.
Thank you. Move on.
Thank you.
Thanks.
No comments here?
Sorry to see the concerts done, but there's going to be a big car show this week at the Legion, and thank you, everybody. On we go.
Last car show too, isn't it?
Yes.
I will say real quickly that we didn't talk about this much in this meeting, but I think the summer concert series was a huge success. We had upwards of 300 people at some of those events. It grew pretty much every week. Obviously, our one rain out that got into school starting, we saw a dip on that, but when school was out, I think the attendance did nothing but grow all week. And as we mentioned, a lot of other businesses and community members and organizations got involved, and that's tremendous. I think that is the goal that we all want to see as being part of this board. So I think that is a big success for as a DDA accomplishment that we can put as a feather on our cap. I think that was really, really well done all the way around. So I thank you to the DDA director for your support and making that happen. And to everybody who did get involved, that was outstanding. So
Great choice on the bands too, by the way. I loved every one of them. Everyone.
try to do a variety, and I think it worked out really, really well. So
It
we'll
did.
continue to work on that. All right, if there's no other commentary, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? All opposed? Perfect. Thank you.
Frankly, I was thinking about
Yeah, you
putting
want
a poll out
Shut
there
off.
for, you know, which bands did you
It's just
like,
one
which
of
bands
those
did you not
days.
like? Would you like to see them back? Do you think any bands would be offended by that?
Phone just keeps on.
Do you think anybody would care?
I think you're gonna get 10 people participate, and I think, yeah, I mean, I didn't hear anybody complain about any of them, and I think we probably would look at the list again, and we can, part of it's always gonna be a function of availability, but I think it is good to have some fresh blood
good.
rotate through. in my opinion. So, you know, maybe a handful of them are back, and we have a handful of new ones. You know, it's 8-10 weeks is all we're looking at, so.
Yeah, that's the easy answer. Hey, Bernie, you got any trucks on your lot or?